Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Jake at thatfitfriend.com, and today I'll be reviewing the Tolos Soleil. So I have the barefoot option and the transition, and I'll talk about both in this video. So 3 pros that come along with this shoe is number 1, I think it's an awesome looking barefoot shoe for dressing up. I like the Archetype 1 and the Archetype 2 because you can train in them but then also dress them up a little bit more casually or to the office a little bit more formally. But I think the Soleil is just a step above both of those models when it comes to their daily wear performance. Now, these might not be the best shoes for training in the gym, and I'll talk about that in my cons, but when it comes to just daily wear and just looking good with a lot of different outfits, these shoes can be awesome. I think they have a nice blend of materials, so we have a ripstop upper with some suede overlays, some synthetic overlays, and a foam tongue that gives it a little bit more style. And so I've been rocking these out and about and a little bit more formally. So for example, I was out in the Hamptons in Montauk the other weekend, and the Transition Soleil was actually the only shoe I wore out. We were going to nicer spots, and I thought I looked pretty good. Now granted, when you consider the influencers and the people there for money, I'm sure they looked at me in general and my energy and were like, you are common scum, and but I thought I looked good, and that's all that matters. And everybody I was with, I was actually asking them on purpose because I was building this review, how do you like these shoes? How do they go with this outfit? And generally all the feedback was super positive with this model. The second thing to like with this shoe is its outsole construction and just general grip and durability. Since this shoe is likely going to be worn on a daily wear basis by most for higher volumes of walking and whatnot, the outsole gripping different surfaces is clutch. Honestly, this outsole has yet to have any slip issues on me, and because it is a slightly thicker rubber and it's a little bit more sticky and grippy, I think it will last a while too. The lugs are a little bit deeper than some of the other barefoot shoes on the market, so I think if you want a shoe that's going to last a long time, especially when it comes to its tread and giving you grip, the Soleil can be a great option to look into. The third thing to like with the Soleil is its upper construction and just how spacey it can feel with its fit. I like that you can wear this shoe a little bit looser and just slide your foot in, and it doesn't feel too roomy, but then you can also tighten them up and it doesn't look like they're cranked too tight or anything. It doesn't look like there's like material overlap, so I really enjoy that with the shoe. And with the ripstop upper, it is pretty easy to wipe down and clean, so for daily wear, that is a major perk of this shoe. There's just a good level of structure to this shoe, and I think the silhouette is stellar. But now let's talk about a couple of cons that I have with the Soleil. All right, so 2 potential cons I could see folks having with the Soleil is if you fell in love with the Archetype 1 and 2 because you can train in them and then also wear them on a casual basis, the Soleil is going to be a little bit more biased, in my opinion, towards more general daily wear. You can train in this shoe for sure, but with its more spacious upper volume, it doesn't give you the same lockdown for more athletic and dynamic style workouts. So what I would suggest doing is if you do want one of the new Tolos models for training, the Canvas High would probably be a better bet. You can definitely work out in the Soleil again, but it's just gonna feel a little bit more beefy on the foot compared to the Archetype if you fell in love with that sock-like style fit. Also, these can run a little bit heavy for training. Even the barefoot option, it is a little bit of a heavier model because of the thicker rubber outsole compared to other barefoot shoes made exclusively for training. The second con that I could see folks having with this shoe is they do not come with separate insoles, so if you like to have a little bit more foam under the foot for just general comfort, you are going to have to either grab an insole from an older shoe or buy a new pair of insoles. For that context, because this model, unlike the Archetype 2.0, it doesn't come with an additional thin foam removable insole. So not the end of the world, and you could always just use your insoles from other shoes, but definitely food for thought there if you're big on having a little bit of a foam layer under the foot as you wear your barefoot or transition option. So to break down the performance of the Soleil, I'll briefly talk about how they do for training. I didn't train a ton in this shoe. I wore them for a couple of workouts and was like, you know what? I'm gonna actually save these just for daily wear because that's where I like them. I have other shoes in the barefoot realm for my training, and then I'll also discuss how this shoe does for just daily wear and general comfort. Now for training, this shoe is okay. It's a little bit heavier, and because this shoe does run a half size short, I think some might find that the toe box feels a little bit limiting when you get in deep flexion if you don't get your size right. So I would suggest going up a half size in this shoe compared to what you wore in the Archetype 2.0 if you plan to train in this model. You can use it for lifting and the grip's gonna be awesome, and you can also do a little bit more dynamic training in them. Just keep in mind that they will be a little bit heavier compared to other models out there or the prior Tolos shoes. And then if you want a little bit more midsole or just foot protection for your training, if you want to wear the Soleil for that, the transition option can be awesome because this midsole doesn't feel overly soft, so it can still feel plenty stable in the gym for your strength and hypertrophy workouts. Now, when it comes to daily wear, I have thoroughly enjoyed this shoe. I wear this shoe with and without socks, and I really enjoy how it just feels. If I want to wear it looser, you can easily do so and slip your foot in. I like that a lot about this model. I'm big on convenience with daily wear of shoes, and if I don't have to mess with the laces or mess with the tongue too much, that's usually a win for me. And I like the appearance and that the ripstop is pretty easy to wipe down, and it does a decent job in most settings. Generally speaking, suede and ripstop tend to be pretty dang durable, and if you're worried about them breaking down too quick, you can weatherproof these as well, and that should also prolong their lifespan. Now, when it comes to the barefoot versus transition option, what is the big difference between these shoes? Well, for starters, if you are acclimated to barefoot shoes and you want as much ground feel as possible, you'll want to go with the barefoot option. This shoe has a stack height that's around 7 millimeters, so it is a lot more flexible through the forefoot. It's going to feel a lot more lightweight on the foot in general and a little bit more flexible throughout. So this will give you a little bit more flexion and freedom up here in the toe box when it comes to just forefoot maneuverability. The transition option here has a stack height that sits around 13-ish millimeters. Now, what is a transition shoe? So a transition shoe is going to be a shoe that gives you a zero drop construction, wide toe box, and a barefoot-esque feel, but gives you a little bit of a midsole to help give you more foot protection and help you acclimate to this style of footwear. So if you're brand new to barefoot shoes for daily wear and you're going to be on your feet all day or walking a bunch, the transition option can be a great option to go with. You're going to lose a little bit out on that flexibility just because that's the nature of having a midsole in a shoe, but I love that there's an option here for folks who, you know, they might not be as acclimated, but they love the look of the Soleil. Grab a transition option, and then as you feel more ready to transition to even a more minimalist feel, the barefoot Soleil can be a great option. And if you want to cop both, I don't think that's a terrible move, especially if you are somebody who likes rotating through your footwear like myself. Overall though, I have enjoyed the Soleil. Is it going to be as sporty and as training focused as the Archetypes? No, but I do believe we have an Archetype 3 coming down the road, so I think that will be a much more sporty training focused shoe. And then the Soleil will be that model that you can wear out and about to the office and just attack daily life with. All right, so when it comes to sizing in the Soleil, it's going to be interesting, and bear with me here. And I've gone back and forth with Tolos to figure out what should be recommended for most folks because I obviously don't want to steer you into the wrong here with the sizing, but generally speaking, I think most individuals will want to go up a half size in the Soleil compared to the traditional shoe that they wear now. So if you've worn Tolos shoes, for example, in the Archetype 1 and 2, go up a half size from those shoes and you should get a little bit more room. The Canvas High has been fitting a little bit more true, and I talk about that in my review, but the Soleil has been a little bit shorter, and Evan's theory, just asking him questions about it, is just because of how the toe break is in the shoe and the materials and how it just gives it a slightly shorter feel overall. So a half size up should be a safe call. Now, if you have a narrower foot width, and if you traditionally have a thumb's width length at the end of your current Archetype 2.0, you might be safe going true to size, but for everyone else, I think going up a half size will be a safe bet, and these shoes do have plenty of width throughout the midfoot and forefoot, so they should accommodate a lot of different foot widths really well, and because we do have a higher upper volume, I think these will be an awesome option as well if you want to put your own insoles in to give these a little bit more cushion and padding. All right, so now who should buy the Soleil? So number one, if you want a barefoot shoe for casual wear, just wearing to the office and whatnot, honestly, I feel like this shoe is a hit. It nails a lot of different style aspects to it, and I do feel like it's a really good looking shoe that can be dressed up with a lot of different outfits. Number two, barefoot shoe beginners. Look into the transition shoe of this. If you want to wear a barefoot shoe for daily wear, this can be an awesome option to get you into the barefoot shoe game, but also without beating up the feet and ankles way too much from the jump, because this model does give you a little bit more foot protection and comfort. Number three, if you have an exceptionally wide foot or you just like having a little bit more upper volume to your shoes, the Soleil I think can be a really good option to go with, and the fact that you can slide them on and off without necessarily having to mess with the tongue and laces, honestly, I love that as well. So if you're big on convenience like myself, you'll enjoy the Soleil. Now, who should pass on the Soleil? If you're looking for a shoe that you can work out really hard in and then also wear casually, the Soleil might not be your best bet. Again, you can train in them. I'm not saying you can't, but they're definitely going to be a little bit more biased towards daily wear. Another context where I could see the Soleil being a miss is if you have a super low volume foot and you constantly have to look for shoes that are very snug fitting with the upper, you may want to pass on this shoe. You might not get enough upper security. I think this is going to be a very niche context, but definitely food for thought out there if you're constantly battling the uppers and just the overall volume that come along with them in your shoes. All right, so when it comes to the weight, heel, toe drop, and insole in the Soleil, for the barefoot shoe option here, we have a weight of 10.10 ounces, and then for the transition option, we have a weight of 12.35 ounces. The heel to toe drop of these shoes both sit at 0 millimeters. The stack height of the barefoot sits around 7 millimeters, and then for the transition around 13 millimeters. And then once again, these shoes do not have removable insoles, and they don't come with separate insoles that you can put in. All right, so now let's break down the construction of the Soleil. This is the transition option. The only real difference is that the transition option is going to have a built-in midsole. Barefoot is not, so the barefoot option will be a little bit more flexible. Now, looking at the materials used used on the Soleil. Up here on the toe box, we have a suede overlay with an internal TPU layer. This is what gives this shoe a slightly shorter fit, so that's why I recommend going up a half size. It has a nice layering to it though for additional durability, so I do like that. Looking at the upper, we have a ripstop upper that extends from the forefoot into the midfoot and back here into the heel. The heel does have a little bit of structure, and it also has suede overlays that go around the boot here to help give you additional lockdown. The boot itself does have a light padding up here towards the top of it, and there is an external heel tab. And then looking at the midfoot of this shoe, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 core outlets that go up and a 7th back here for lace lock. The tongue is gusseted. It's this foam material. It kind of reminds me of that Nike Blazer tongue that a lot of folks love. There's a loop here on the tongue as well to help keep it in place. And what I like about this shoe is that when you wear it loose, the tongue doesn't move a ton. So I do really appreciate that with this model. Again, the transition option does have this sewn in midsole here, so you can see that it's a little bit thicker. And then we have this rubber outsole that wraps around the entirety of this shoe. It has a decently deep lug and tread patterning to it, so I don't think it's going to break down super quick, and it has a good level of grip. There's a little bit of Tolos branding here on the lateral heel and then up here on the tongue, but that is virtually it in this shoe. Sans is very faint heat press suede layering back here that says Tolos. And again, this model doesn't have a removable insole, but if you have additional questions on the Soleil's construction, drop a comment down below. All right, y'all, that wraps up my review of the Tolos Soleil. Now, if I had to pick a shoe that I wear more often than the other between the Barefoot and the transition option, I've actually been wearing the transition option a little bit more. I really enjoy having a little bit more midsole there for my all-day wear. I do like the Barefoot option, but I do think the transition option has a lot of versatility to it. If you have additional questions on either of these shoes, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.